My internet seems slightly choppy, so I think I'm going to pass it quicker than I usually would to Andy and Kia, maybe to kick us off, to kick off a DAO in the second of the DAOs and Dragons sessions.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. You can also pass co-host if you want, and we should be safe then. It's wonderful to see everybody. Welcome. Thank you so much for taking time out of your Friday to join us again. It's delightful as ever to see your pretty faces or your initials. Neither of them are delightful. As you probably know, the first session of this guild was held mostly by the amazing Kreutler, and she gave us a deep prehistory of DAOs, looking at different kinds of cooperatives, the Rochdale principles, and various different dives into dragon kill points and the economies of games, and numerous other streams, which all somehow feed into these decentralized autonomous organizations. For me in particular, the notion of memory and justice seemed most memorable in Kia's talk, as well as the idea that these are heterarchic structures, which means that they can be ranked in many different ways, not that they are without some kind of ranking entirely, but depending on your perspective, whether it's from the business angle, the technical angle, the community angle, the political angle, you will see different parts of them and rank them differently, which I think is a very wonderful insight that plugs into many of the aspects that we think about and teach in kernel. In particular, the notion that anarchy is a word that indicates no rulers, not no rules. And the distinction is a critical one. We are here to figure out how everybody can lead themselves, not to do away with leadership. I think this notion is an important one and one worth focusing on. We're not building tools to govern better. That way lies more efficient forms of dictatorship. We are building tools that will help us help one another. That notion of care and solidarity is one which comes directly out of the cooperative world. And the idea that mutual aid is that which enables individual autonomy is something that we will spend much of the rest of the weeks focusing on. It's not going to be a theoretical talk, despite my rambling today. I haven't clearly got the chance to speak as much today as I ordinarily would have, so sorry for subjecting you to that. But where we're going to actually begin today is with Isaac. Isaac is a wonderful developer who has very kindly helped us out in kernel before. He did an incredible presentation on the archaeology and rescue of some of the early creeps and weirdos from the Dada ecosystem, these proto NFTs, which are actually RC20 tokens that he rescued on chain. It's a wonderful presentation. I suggest you go and find it on the Kernel YouTube channel if you're into that kind of thing. But Isaac, in addition to doing that, has also been a big part of the efforts at Malak, which is one of the more reproducible DAO frameworks that we're very interested in. And he is here today to help us think about and deploy our own DAO. So without giving away too much of the game, Isaac, if you're here, please feel free to take it away.
Yeah, thank you. Hello, everybody. So I'll take us through a few exercises today, which will get us set up for some for a lot of the activities that we'll be doing throughout this and future sessions. So the first thing we're going to do is deploy a, one second, let me clear my throat. I also have not talked enough today, so I'll mute for a second. All right, that should make me interrupt myself a little bit less often. All right, so the first thing we're going to do, we're going to be deploying a DAO on Polygon today with very short voting periods. We'll do it on DAO House. Voting periods will be around like 5 or 10 minutes, just so that we can do things rapidly. That's not a great DAO for like kind of lazy consensus where we're all trying to keep track of our Discord channels and make sure people aren't stealing our funds. So later we'll actually be able to upgrade our DAO to something with longer voting periods. We'll be able to keep all of the assets in the same place. And this is going to be a very hands-on way of seeing the inner workings of kind of the state of the art when it comes to what people talk about with DAOs and Zodiac and Malak and everything. It's also going to be a bit messy because we are kind of at the bleeding edge of stuff. So you'll see me often notice that something is broken, have to go to Etherscan, trigger transactions manually. So be prepared for that. The first thing that I wanted to do, I'm not sure, I don't want to make the assumption that everybody has Matic tokens. So we can do a quick like tip party. Yes, we can also talk about kind of when we're going through a lot of the stuff with V2, Malak will have lots of opportunities to talk about what is going to happen on change with V3. I would like everybody to go to this URL, and if you don't have any Matic tokens, you're going to get at least like maybe, I don't know how many people are on the call, but you'll get somewhere between half a Matic and one Matic. If just go to this room, connect your wallet, and let me share my screen. We'll actually be able to see all that coming in. So let's see, has anybody been able to connect yet? It's one of my favorite tools from Moonshot.
This is cool. I've never seen this. I'm connecting right now.
Excellent. All right. Once I see, let's see, how many people do we have connected? So I was testing out a couple different tools for this morning, and I was like looking, what's the easiest way to like send a bunch of tokens to a bunch of addresses? And I had like forgotten about this tool that Austin always uses on stage at conferences. And so I went to this like website, multisender.app, and it's kind of a perfect example of a really easy app that I kind of want to fork, and it's probably great for like passive income. They charge you like $50 to like just send tokens to a set of addresses. I didn't realize that this thing existed, but it's something that people like not in crypto wouldn't realize is a really application to make. And these people are probably just making bank by hosting this website. But anyway, Austin's version is free. So let's see, we've got 24 people. We've got 76 in the call. So I'd like to see a few more addresses connect. We'll also use this list of addresses as the initial summoning addresses of our DAO as well. So 29, nice, 30. I think if I get to 50, I'll probably call them. I bet maybe there's about 20 people that are just listening in, but not at their computer. $30. All right. I'll put a little timer on the screen. It's gonna be like 2 more minutes.
We don't need to select Matic network, do we?
You shouldn't need to.
Okay.
All right, 33 addresses. Once this gets down to 2 minutes left, and you can get some free Matic tokens from me. Meanwhile, I'll scan through and look at the folks on the call. Thanks everyone for coming out today. It's exciting.
Don't worry, if you're not at your computer, you can still join the DAO.
Yeah, you'll be able to join the DAO after, don't worry.
So we don't have to be connected to the Matic, but should we be on mainnet then? Or does it
either's fine. I'm going to send the tokens on Matic. You should, if you don't have Matic in your MetaMask, you can go to chainlist.org, which unfortunately, according to the devs, is shutting down on April 3rd. This is like my favorite tool. So maybe we should figure out a way to host this. Maybe we can host like an Arweave app or something, because this is like an insanely useful utility. So you go to chainlist.org, search for any chain that you want. And this is just a way to shortcut that whole process of adding chains to your MetaMask. So I'm going to search for Polygon, connect wallet, add to MetaMask, and then it like automatically adds the whole network and the RPC URLs and everything. So this is another one of my favorite utilities that I like to use for people.
Do you have a favorite on-ramp for Matic now that Dharma is down? Do you have any like?
Usually my favorite on-ramp is asking a friend to send me some and buying them here. All right, 41, that's pretty good. All right, 42. Oh, I'm still seeing a few more. All right, I'll give people a couple more minutes. All right, and also don't worry, you will have an opportunity. If you don't get in here, you'll have an opportunity to make a proposal to get into the DAO. So unless somebody raises their hand and screams stop, I'm going to distribute some tokens now. So how much Matic do I have? I think let's give out like 40 Matic or something. All right, this should work. Oh crap, a few more people came in. I might have to send more tokens later. Ah, crap. All right, so confetti, everybody received about 0.9 Matic. And I don't have a whole lot left in this wallet. So hopefully if you didn't get in, let me set up like I'll call it kernel late. Let's see, kernel. If you haven't gotten in, go to kernel 2, and then throughout the course of the next like 10 minutes, feel free to add your addresses here and I'll add you. Cool. Wait, let's see. Hopefully the address, oh cool, the addresses are still here. All right, wonder if I can export these addresses. That'd be a good question for Austin. Because that would be a handy way for me to populate all of the addresses for the DAO. All right, so you should all now have a little bit of Matic. This is just enough for you to actually interact with the blockchain. Let's see. I wonder if there's a nice way for me to download all of these addresses. Maybe somebody can do that while.
I think there's some comments in the chat, Isaac, that if you go back to party, you should be able to export a CSV.
Oh, cool.
If you like that, no, if you scroll up, there's like a little export button on the right hand side.
Oh, I love Moonshot. I love all this stuff. Thank you. All right, let me now do some data. You can watch me do some keyboard shortcuts in VS Code. Command Shift L. Nice. Now I can assign everybody. And this is not just me showing off my keyboard shortcuts. This is just the only fastest way that I know how to do this kind of stuff. All right. So what I have here is a list of like 50 addresses. And let me add myself. And what we're going to do is like summon a Malak DAO on DAO House and give us all 10 shares. So let's go to DAO House. And I'll keep the chat window open. And the nice thing about this kernel tip party is now we kind of know who is here, and if we can use this for future airdrops, maybe it's some NFTs, some POAPs to people. So all sorts of awesome reasons for be Karen connecting. So let's go to summon. I am connected to Polygon, and I have just enough Matic left. I probably should have left a little bit more in my wallet. So we're going to go to hard mode because we're doing this like test DAO, which has really quick voting periods, and that's not something people normally do. So let's summon a DAO. Let's say that the periods are 60 seconds long and a voting period lasts 5 minutes and a grace period lasts 2 periods. Within a Malak DAO, the concept of voting is you don't necessarily need to reach quorum. There just needs to be more yes votes than no votes at the end of a voting period for a proposal to go through. And then what the grace period does, right now you're just watching, I'll summon a DAO and post a link and you'll all be able to kind of come here, and everybody that I have your address, you'll be a member of this DAO. Grace period is the time that you can rage quit. And so rage quit means that it's a time that before any proposal is executed, you can quit and get your fair share of the bank. So if there's like $10,000 in the bank and there's 100 members and everybody has like equal shares, at any point, any person could quit and get their like and get their $100 or so out of the treasury. And what this is useful for is like basically you're never kind of stuck by the majority decision. The majority of the DAO could vote, hey, let's hire my brother to do this work for the DAO. And if half the people are like, or even if like 40% of the people say, no, why, that's just, nepotism, you're just hiring this random guy to do work, we're going to quit and take our money out before you can hire him. So it's at minimum, rage quit is like this minority shareholder protection tool. And that's what you can do during the grace period. So you can, even if a proposal that you really don't want to go through passes, you still have time to quit. Does that make sense to people?
It does. And Isaac, it might be worth just going one step further back for some on the call to discuss like where Malak came from, and
sure.
why Amin put these things together, and how it has evolved to this more elegant version that we're now running through.
Sure. So early version of Malak DAO, it kind of came from and Amin tells this story a lot better than I do. But I think the first, Amin came out of the original, right. Well, the Slate Star Codex was like kind of the origin of the meme. So meditations on Malak, I would highly recommend everybody read this. Thank you, Vivek, for sharing this. So it's this interpretation of this poem from Allen Ginsberg about Malak, and highly recommend everybody just read through it. But my very short and not doing enough justice version of it is Malak is the representation of why we fail to coordinate, why we have like large groups in society that fail to do things for our common good. Why, like, kind of the tragedy of the commons, like over and over again, why are we unable to do things that clearly would benefit all of us? And a lot of that is because of the incentive structures of society, of capitalism, of the existing systems. This is like the worst possible explanation that I could give for like this really eloquent essay. And anybody else, feel free to jump in and give their explanation. But this is like the origin story of the Malak meme. And then the Malak DAO was this very simple framework that came out of the aftermath of the original DAO hack. So the original DAO amassed I think 15% of all the ETH on the network got hacked due to a reentrancy bug by apparently some guy named Toby, according to the news last week. And then that caused the original fork between ETH and ETH Classic, where everybody decided, hey, yeah, not this Toby, where everybody decided, hey, let's just pretend that didn't happen because that was really bad for all of us. And let's just make a new version of the blockchain where that hack didn't happen. And so that's why we have ETH and ETH Classic. So Malak was like, okay, that version of the DAO was clearly a bit too complex. There was too many parameters. How can we boil a DAO down to just really basic stuff? And so the original Malak DAO, it was a money-losing DAO. You could only send money in, you could only vote to give shares away, and you could only quit. So at best, you could quit to get your share of the DAO, but it really couldn't do much anything else at all. So if you wanted to give a grant to somebody, you would vote to give them shares, and then they would quit the DAO, burn their shares, and get their portion of the treasury. Like money in, money out, shares, like that's all that Malak V1 could do. Does that make sense? That ran for a while. They raised a whole lot of ETH. Malak V2 came along when, and again, I don't know the whole origin story of V2. I kind of came into the Malak ecosystem between 2 and 3. But V2 added some features to allow us to actually make proposals to spend the money. So we could say, hey, let's make a proposal to send some funds to this person. And it also allowed the DAO to manage a bank of like multiple tokens. It still had that functionality of rage quit, but it was slightly improved in that you could also just do arbitrary like funding proposals. After, you still couldn't just interact with like any random contract though. It was still just limited to sending tokens. And so that's what most of the DAOs on DAO House are. In fact, almost all of them, I think, are Malak V2 DAOs. And so if we see, let's see, sometimes this morning there was subgraph issues. So we'll see if this is going to work.
Sorry, quick clarification. Malak V1 was the DAO original and V2 is just prevent like whatever came after?
Malak V1 was like the first framework that Amin and James Young and then I met someone in Denver who wrote the white paper about forgetting his name. It was the original very simple DAO that kind of came after the original DAO hack. And then V2 is like an improved framework on that, which is the basis for DAO House, right? So Malak was not the DAO that got hacked. Malak was like the simple DAO that came in like during the PTS DAO period. And so we can actually go to the hub and see if the subgraph was down today, but you can actually see like a transparent treasury everywhere on DAO House of what all the DAOs are doing. So like the Meta Cartel DAO, for example, I wonder if I can look at that. Actually, so here is the DAO House TCO. They just used a DAO for their latest fundraising mechanism, which launched at ETH Denver, and so they raised a little over 2 million into their DAO. And CCOs are, by themselves, like deserve an entire session. It's like a really cool fundraising mechanism where you can provide like funds to a DAO, and at any point during the process which they're using their funds, if you like change your mind, if you're like, hey, I put in $1,000 into this DAO, but they're not actually using them the way they said they were, you can pull funds back at any time. It's like this highly accountable, highly fair way of doing fundraising. And this is like the mechanism that DAO House just used to raise a couple $1 million to fund their development efforts. And so we can see the main DAO treasury has the majority of the WETH in there. And so this is the funds that over time are going to get spent on things like a working group for a specific project. Somebody can make a proposal like, hey, we need $10,000 to work on this specific thing. And that might come out of this and that might come out of this overall vault. This reminds me of one other thing that I want to say about Malak DAOs is the concept of both voting and non-voting shares. So DAO House was able to raise 2.5 million from 100 people over the course of about a week or so. Just kind of the power of this community. So in Malak DAOs, there's a concept of both voting and non-voting shares. Oftentimes you don't want people to just have full voting weight based on the amount of money that they put into something. So you might want but you want them to be able to have like the full economic weight of what they put in. And so the impact of this means in this CCO, everybody in this initial set, so I'm included in here and a few other folks, these are the folks with voting influence, but everybody who puts in money gets like proportional like economic weight. And so this is the difference between shares and loot. Shares are voting shares, loot are just economic interests. And so whether you have shares or loot, you can always rage quit to get your share of the treasury. Like right now I have 210 total shares, so 10 shares and 200 loot. If I wanted to, I could go to my profile and I could rage quit and get $5,000 out right now. This is like the money that I invested into the DAO House CCO. If I change my mind at this moment, I could just straight up quit. And that's like because I have overall about 9% of voting weight, and then like some extra loot because I put in some money. So is that example helpful?
Hugely so. Thank you so much.
Cool. So with that as context, let's all join a DAO. So let me join the Polygon network. And let's go to the hub, switch to a different wallet. And I was doing a couple examples this morning. So let's grab all of our addresses. Actually, let me go back to the tip party and see if anybody else. So there's 15.
Isaac, there's also the spreadsheet.
Oh, yes.
63 addresses in it.
Okay, can we just use that one for the DAO then?
Yeah, I think use the spreadsheets.
Okay, do you have the link to that one handy?
Sure, sure,
I
sure.
got it. Oh, sorry. Also in a tip party that says that there's like 54 people in it, so I'm curious about that. But
right, so there's 63 on here. Let's give everybody 10 shares. I think ENS names work. I'm not positive. So if you want to replace your ENS.
I'll just do that.
Oh, something that I could do. Let me copy. I'm just going to make sure absolutely everybody possible is included. So I'm going to like dedupe the whole list. So that's one list. List.
yeah, Charlene, to answer your question, I think basically an ETH address that you have most sovereignty over, i.e. a MetaMask one, maybe a Coinbase one, but MetaMask is definitely better, would be preferable for this type of an environment where you want to be able to like sign transactions easily over time. So yeah, it's a great question, but I think, yeah, that would be my answer.
We have
Yeah.
89 deduplicated addresses, and there might be some duplicate people. not the
It's
end of the
okay.
world.
And it's worth, while Isaac is getting these together, it's also worth saying that these DAOs are very flexible. It's one of the great joys of using DAO House and the V2 contracts, although Isaac has also been working on V3. And this is a learning opportunity, so don't feel like you will be excluded in any way, right? Like if you're not included in this DAO as we deploy it, all you have to do is make a proposal to be included in the DAO. And that is a wonderful way in which to learn about DAO House. So if you're not at a machine right now, you don't have access to an ETH address that you do control, then it's no problem, because you will get to learn about DAO House more than the people who have put their addresses into that spreadsheet. So you will in fact end up benefiting greatly from not being included right now. So yeah, there's no
Don't
need
worry
to panic.
if I'm moving too fast. Don't worry. There will be ample opportunities to get involved. This is like our 5-minute voting period DAO. This is, I would call this a burner DAO. So like, don't worry, there will be plenty of opportunities to get your fair share. So I just pasted 89 summoning addresses into here. I hope I have enough Matic, because this might be an expensive summon, but I'm going to summon this DAO.
If not, just put your address in the chat and I'll talk.
Yeah. Okay, 0.03. I forget. Matic is quite not too bad. 30, 30.4. Okay. We are summoning our DAO.
Isaac, while this happens, can you talk about why you chose Polygon?
Sure. I wanted to use Gnosis this morning, but the subgraph was down. That's my preferred layer 2 for DAOs. Polygon is like my runner-up preferred layer 2. I think that generally DAOs like Malak DAOs, it's very challenging to run them on mainnet because they're just there's a lot of on-chain voting involved. So a lot of like mainnet DAOs are you'll often see people like doing like snapshot with gasless voting and tokens. I think Tribute also has like a gasless voting framework. You can do more on mainnet. It's like important. You can do more gasless voting stuff. I'm in a couple Malak DAOs on mainnet, but I ended up like spending multiple ETH in gas fees over the course of like a couple months, just like being in that DAO, which is like really annoying. So that's why generally you'll see most Malak DAOs on a layer 2, whether it's Gnosis chain or Polygon, or as the OGs say, XDAI and Matic. So that's why we chose Polygon today. All right. Again, the subgraph has been a little funky today. So like I said, this is you might see me going to like Polygon scan and stuff just to make sure things are working. We are currently slaying Malak by doing this together. Yes.
Maybe a Gnosis question Kia could answer on Gnosis chain and Gnosis safe. Are they part of the same ecosystem? Just a coincidence?
Yeah, so I just like disclosure, I work at Gnosis. I've worked at Gnosis for the last 4.5 years, and basically Gnosis was initiated building prediction markets, which are a type of kind of decentralized trading protocol to sponsor good information about outcome of events. We also built up several teams over the last 4 years, one focused on just a decentralized trading protocol, which is now Cow protocol. Also, we built a wallet initially to hold our own funds, and that became Gnosis Safe. and really used in the ecosystem. And additionally, I work on Gnosis Guild and DAO tools, and Gnosis Chain is related to Gnosis. It was recently the result of a merger between XDAI, which was the original chain name of the side chain, or now kind of grouped in with layer 2s, which basically offered kind of composability with Ethereum, but gas fees at stable volatility as well as in stable prices. And now with the merger with Gnosis, it is rebranded to Gnosis Chain, and will take on some additional functionalities like testing ETH2 integrations a month before mainnet does, in order to kind of test any breaking changes, and also kind of ease of just using a lot of different DAO tooling will be prioritized for its future development. So they're definitely related, but they are separate products, and all of the products are like Gnosis Safe is open source. I think it's MIT licensed. So when I say products, I also mean kind of infrastructure.
Thank you. It's funny, like I don't even know the whole history of Gnosis. Like I was just like, oh, Gnosis Safe, but I forget about the entire history.
Yeah, there's really so much. It's been a struggle to communicate.
Mm-hmm. Right, so our DAO was successfully summoned, but it timed out. So I have to, you're watching me go into like kind of the guts of Etherscan to grab the address of the DAO. DAO/clubs/register. There, let's see. It shows up here. So let's call this DAOs and Dragons. So right now I'm just adding some metadata about the DAO, so that, let's see. Let's see if that worked or not. All right, here's our DAO. So we can see that we have 89 members, 890 shares, and you can actually, so you'll all actually be able to see your membership interests here. Right now, there's nothing in this DAO. You're free to quit. You're free to make a proposal to join. I can walk you through how to make proposals to join. But I wanted to just kind of show about like what are the various things that people often do with a DAO once we get to this step. So we can see what is in our treasury. Right now, there are officially $0 in our treasury. I wonder if I have any. I don't think I'd have any. Wonder if I have any like random ERC20 so I can toss into here for demo purposes. I have some Decentraland. All right, let me send. I'll send some mana into our DAO.
Nice.
All right, got 10 mana. And when I'm sending it to our DAO, I can just send it right to the main treasury. And so the treasury is just the address of the DAO. Let me send 5 mana. All right, send this. But the DAO does the mana actually won't show up here because the DAO we didn't pre-configure our DAO to be able to handle mana. So basically, I just threw about 5 mana away. But no worry, I can like actually make a proposal that we can all vote on to add mana to our token balances. So this can be like the first proposal that we all vote on as a group. Let me see. Again, today subgraphs were being funky, so there might be little things that are annoying. This didn't go through or not. That's disappointing. Oh, this says I'm not a member. I did not give myself shares. I gave you all shares, but I did not give myself shares. All right. Let's see. I could summon a new DAO, or I can make a proposal.
Make a proposal to make yourself members so that people can see and catch up if they're not on the spreadsheet.
All right, somebody who is a member, can you please go to this URL and just give our DAO a title? Because like that's just something that needs to happen for me to be able to make a proposal, just like a little UI thing. So one of you members out there.
Okay, here we go.
You doing it, Eva?
Yeah, I'd Hope Wi-Fi Club. Got it. I've given it a title.
Cool.
And I've clicked save. I don't know if I need to add all the descriptions and everything.
You should just, that should be fine. Yeah, are you on Medic?
Am I on Medic? I am.
Cool. We should see that come through any moment. I love making mistakes live.
Okay. Yeah, I have signed the transaction that is given.
Yeah, it should just be a signature. You shouldn't have to charge you anything.
Yep. Yep.
Cool.
If you refresh.
The Toad Hope Wi-Fi Club. Thank you. All right. I am going to request that you all let me into this club that I started. I would like, all right, I'm just gonna ask for one share as like, you all have 10 shares, I'll just have one share. I'm not gonna tribute anything. And sorry. All right. So now you'll all actually be able to decide if you want me in your club or not. I won't be offended if you say no. Hope I have to adjust the gas fee. Yeah, I should have put the mana. I heard he sent the mana in.
The adjustment to Matic will happen in your MetaMask, where you choose, instead of Ethereum mainnet, Polygon mainnet.
I'm not sure if I see Rainbow came up. I'm not sure if Rainbow supports Polygon.
Should, no?
I think so.
Do I have to add a network? So when I go onto Ethereum mainnet,
Rainbow, you don't need to add a network on Rainbow. You just go to the, so like this screen here, there's like where you're connected. And if you scroll down to DAO House, you can just select Polygon for connecting the network. And that way you can, yeah, that was helpful for folks.
Thanks please don't rage quit if I get in. All right, so now somebody, I also need to sponsor this proposal. It should cost you 0 MATA because I set the sponsorship threshold to 0. You can also set it to more than 0. And it's kind of like a spam prevention tool. Somebody please sponsor, and then we will enter the voting period. While we're doing this, I'm also going to make the proposal to add mana. Oh yeah, let me send this link. You might just have to refresh a couple times, and then it should show up.
Should I be able to see a proposal at this point? Because I see no proposals here yet in the DAOs that I'm looking at.
If you refresh a couple times, you might see it. It just sometimes the subgraph takes a little bit of time.
I've sponsored you,
So
Isaac.
I saw the proposal. I sponsored it, but it looked like it failed.
Got it. I think multiple people might have tried to sponsor it. I feel honored that you're all trying to sponsor me at the same time. All right, let's see. I see, yep, sponsor proposal went through 23 seconds ago, and it should enter the voting period momentarily. While we do this, so I mentioned how I set the mana into the DAO, but the DAO currently doesn't show that in the token balances. And so what I can make is called a whitelist proposal. So add mana to our bank. And this will allow us, oh, wrong thing. This will allow our DAO to now know that it has mana tokens in it. And then if anybody quits, it would allow them to take their fair share of the mana that I sent in. So I'm going to submit this. And let's see, again, do that properly. How much Matic do I have left? Okay, I still have enough. All right, we are in the voting period. And we have 4 minutes to vote on this thing. So again, make your decision. No pressure either way. Feel free to vote me in or out.
Isaac, quick question for you.
Mm-hmm.
On my end, I'm not seeing that new proposal option up top. Should I be able to see that, or do I need to click something to make that an option?
You will, if you don't see that, that means that you're not connected to the Matic network in your browser.
Got it. Okay.
So make sure that you're on. Are you using MetaMask?
Yes, I am. Yep.
Make sure that you're connected to Polygon or Matic.
Okay.
Because if you're not, I can show that if I'm on connected mainnet, then that goes away.
Yep. I noticed that as well. Okay, cool. So is it okay if we go ahead and start making proposals to add ourselves here?
Yeah. And oh, nice. It looks like my proposal is currently passing. That's very kind of you all.
No one's voted no so far. I mean, this is a very, very happy place, you know.
And given the properties of a Malak DAO, like if you at this point, if you don't object, feel free to do nothing, because like that's kind of the nice that's what we call lazy consensus. There's no quorum requirement. It's just a matter of waiting for it to pass. So you'll often see in a Malak DAO, it looks like almost nobody's voting, and it's just because like all it takes is one person to vote yes, and everyone's like, yeah, I mean, that's fine with me. So the only time that you really see a lot of votes are when things are contentious. If you have an error submitting vote, try to manually update the gas. Sometimes, let's see, let me test 0, 0. If you go here under edit, for some reason, like a Polygon RPC thing, sometimes these are just wrong. And so today I've just been typing 3333, and that allows it to go through. Again, I told you we're at the bleeding edge of stuff. Things are often janky and terrible and broken, but that's currently what I'm having to do today to get my transactions to go through. So again, edit suggested gas fee 3333. And over time of using MetaMask and the blockchain, you just kind of learn these little tricks for how to make things do what you want. Because blockchains are terrible at UI. So if you have an old transaction from a couple of days ago stuck, you can also go to MetaMask, settings, advanced, and then reset account. It's a scary sounding thing, but all it does is clear out your pending transactions. So that's how you can OB. That's how. So again, settings, advanced, reset account, and that should clear out any like weird pending stuck things.
Does that automatically, I'm assuming, pay a gas fee for all transactions to cancel?
Nope, it just like clears it out of its memory. So it doesn't it won't charge you anything when you click that.
That's interesting. Okay.
Um,
I think I just submitted the proposal, so it
Nice.
seems like it went through.
I do see that. All right, looks like my membership is going to go through. Feel free to also start voting on this mana proposal. Once I have membership, I'll be able to do something quite cool. And Andy, how much time did we dedicate to my just playing around with DAOs today? Because I want to make sure, I know that Kia has some stuff to show too.
I think we have another 8 minutes. Kia, feel free to chime in though.
I actually don't need that much time. 10-15 minutes are fine. So yeah, 20 plus minutes is fine to keep playing around because I think that this is useful.
Nice. Because I will be doing something cool after this, which ties into Gnosis. I'm going to add a Gnosis safe that is controlled by our DAO. Most people, when they think Gnosis safe, they think multi-sig. And like if I go to gnosis.io and I connect, I do not actually control $23 million. I just happen to be on a multi-sig for a random DAO that happened to get a bunch of money. That's just things that happen in DAO world. Not my money. Let's see, safes owned on Ethereum. And so here's like a bunch of safes that I am a signer on. That's like the Moon DAO. Here's like, what is this one? Why are these all coming up as Moon? I don't know. But these are all, or for some reason, the Gnosis Safe UI is not loading, but these are all like different safes that I'm a signer on. But what is like, is not too common knowledge is you can actually have a safe with no signers and just a module which has control over the safe. And that's how we can actually make it so that our Malak DAO can control a Gnosis safe. So let's see, would somebody please process my membership proposal? Just one person needs to do that. And thank you to the 16 people who voted yes for me. Interesting, it looks like, did we get a no vote on mana? We did get a no vote on mana. Good to see things that are a little contentious.
Is that utilizing Zodiac to do that, or is that standard functionality in Gnosis?
Yep, it's utilizing Zodiac. So Zodiac, as you know, is the expansion pack for DAOs. Know that it's like I guess that's a meme at this point, but I still think that's like an awesome way to phrase it. Nice. I am a member of the DAO that I created. How exciting. Let me make sure that I'm connected to Polygon. And the way that you can add a Gnosis safe to your DAO on DAOhouse is we go to this boosts category, minions, and we've got this button called summon minion, and it's called a safe minion. So minions were this like this thing that DAOhouse invented that I mean, Malak DAOs, they can do a lot of stuff, but they could not do any sort of like arbitrary external interaction with other contracts. So they created this minion contract, which acted like a translation layer. So it was a way to like hack Malak v2 to make it do additional stuff. And so you could say like, all right, my minion is going to listen to the results of the vote of a Malak DAO. And if this vote passes, it will execute Y. And that was this like simple translation layer that allowed regular Malak proposals to do much more. And this is like the basis of what all got baked into Malak v3. Like all of this is now one contract. All the stuff that we like that we hacked together with v2. So I'm sure that we'll go into v3 in more detail at some point soon. But what we're doing is adding a safe minion, and we can read the description here. And this says that this operation deploys a new minion and a Gnosis safe for our DAO, and it gives our DAO full control over the safe's assets and transactions. Through this module, we can manage NFTs, manage LP positions, basically do anything that we would want to do on Ethereum using proposals. Another cool thing that you can do with Zodiac is like I could take this this Gnosis safe, not this one specifically because this is on mainnet and it needs to be on Polygon, but I could take a Gnosis safe that I'm a signer on, and I could actually hand over control to a DAO. I could remove all of our signers and say now this DAO, now this is no longer a 5 of 7 multisig. This is now controlled by our DAO of 90 members. And then we don't actually have to move any assets. We can keep all the assets in the same place, and we can just upgrade to a governance framework of our choosing. This is, I think, the most powerful thing that I've heard about in the last like years of DAOs, just because like you can just, when you're starting a DAO, you don't have to worry about it. You're like, okay, let's make a safe. Everybody makes a safe, but that's not actually locking you into any sort of governance framework. You can upgrade it to whatever you want over time. Minions do work cross-chain. That's not a like published feature yet, but they just got that working in the last week or so. Cross-chain minions as well, so you can have governance on XDAI and like execution on mainnet. Yeah, it's like it's hard to keep track of everything that's going on because it's all like everything's super cutting edge. All right, so let's finish this process. Let's name it Smog. Like, how do they spell it in Lord of the Rings? Smog, SMAUG.
You got it.
Dragon. All right, and for the safe, we can actually give it a quorum so that we can execute things fast if we all vote. And so this transaction, and again, I'm going to do my trick of 33. This transaction is actually going to create 2 new smart contracts. It's going to create a minion smart contract, which is a translation layer, and it's going to create a Gnosis safe. And the Gnosis safe is, let's see if we can actually look at this transaction. The Gnosis safe with the address of, let's see. So here's our Smog safe minion. And this is the address of the safe. If I go to Gnosis safe, we can actually see the Gnosis safe on the Gnosis UI, which often is like a minute or so behind the rest of UIs for some reason. But there's actually no, unlike, do I need to like do poly or something? I don't know. The point is like the Gnosis safe exists, but unlike a Gnosis safe where there's owners, there's just a module. I also need to add a little boost, which allows us to interact with our safe. And the last thing I actually wanted to do was send an NFT to our safe. So let's go to our vault, copy that, and let's make an NFT. And this is like just to me, a cool example of something that we can do. We can like take an NFT, throw it into the safe controlled by our DAO. And then maybe in a future session, because I think we've got a couple minutes left, in a future session, we can make proposals to actually move that NFT. And that means that like through DAO proposals, through our DAO, we can make proposals to like sell the NFT on a marketplace, fractionalize it, anything that you could possibly imagine. But it all starts with at least putting an NFT into our safe that we all own. So let's see, create. So let's use the Wander Week thing. And we'll just put it in this untitled collection for now. Let's do it on Polygon. And let's make it a 1 of 1. And then let's answer a CAPTCHA. let's just edit our collection metadata a little bit. Give it the same Wander Week thing, and let's call it kernel party. And let's accept, let's see. All right, oops. Says there's 2 items. All right, well, I was creating like test NFTs earlier, and this is just like a random image that I have on my computer. I'll get rid of that one. All right, so we have this NFT, and let's transfer it into our safe as the last thing that we do today. So I'm going to copy Smog's address, and then I'm going to hit transfer. Sometimes this doesn't work. For some reason, OpenSea updated their whole Polygon network to use meta transactions, and that's very nice of them because it's gasless, but it only works half the time. Yeah.
Gasless meaning, oh well, okay, got it.
Yeah, like it's nice of them because like you can do all sorts of things interacting with OpenSea on Polygon, and they're paying the gas fees, but it only works like a couple, like very rarely. Nice. I was very surprised to learn that this morning. I was going through like a test of this and noticed that like OpenSea had adopted meta transactions for everything. I think that they recently did a big rewrite.
That is cool.
All right, so we have transferred token ID to this. This contract we can see is a Gnosis safe. As you can see by this verified code on Polygon scan. But when we query things about our Gnosis safe, the owner is just our minion. And we can grab is module enabled. So Zodiac module is the thing that that uses the Zodiac interface to control the safe. And so just as a quick demo, I can show you that is module enabled is true. And this means that our DAO has full like kind of super user privileges over this safe. And if we were to go through the process of making, let's see, it looks like somebody's already going to process that. The process of making a proposal to move that NFT would be new proposal, safe minion, minion proposal, grab that contract. Let's see, where's that? So this is the open source token. I can paste that, or let's say, let's move NFT to me. So I'd say, hey, I would like to have the NFT, paste that in, select safe transfer from, and I can say, all right, I would like to send the NFT from Smog to me, token ID, whatever. And then if this passes, that NFT would get transferred to me. We can use this same interface for things like, hey, let's go to fractional art and fractionalize this NFT. But yeah, this would be like future work that we can all do together in another session. I think I'll end here. I know this has been chaotic, but I hope fun. And I think that now that you've kind of seen what the guts of a DAO look like, in the future sessions, when we start talking about different scenarios and different kind of war games and stuff, you'll have this mental picture of like what it actually means to interact with a DAO. So thank you very much for going along this journey with me.
Thank you, Isaac. We love you so much. You're the best. And, there's a lot of fun that we're going to be able to have with this DAO that we now get to think about creating interesting Dungeons and Dragons-like prompts for. And to speak a little bit more about that, we'll have Kei who has some slides, I think, for us to explain what I mean by prompts. And she is definitely the Dragon Master, Dungeon Master, DM of all of our dreams. Kia?
Thanks so much. Let me just, I'm pulling up slides and stuff. I'll share my screen shortly. Cool, so I'll give a little presentation. We should still wrap by the set end time. And thank you also so much, Isaac, for grounding what we'll be doing. Let's see, I just found it. Okay. I'll pull up my little Notion. Be on in one more second. Okay, can you see my browser in the DAOs and Dragons image?
Yes.
Great. So basically we've created a DAO, and like many who create DAOs, the question is, what do we do next? So I think that because this is a workshop format, obviously this is a methodology to try to experiment as much using the platforms that we can, and then also kind of seeing how we work together. But I do think there can be a flaw a little bit in the space that you often see kind of longer lists about like how to start a DAO. It's like start a multi-sig, launch a Malak DAO like we just did, start a token. But these lists like very rarely address the aims and the content of the DAO, which should hugely determine its setup and how it evolves and the tooling that it uses. And also the question of whether the idea should be a DAO in the first place. There's very few checklists for this. So in presenting this, I'm going to offer one potential kind of common aim we could share as a kind of almost like carrot on a stick to lead us through these sessions. And I'm very open to it evolving over time. But first, I want to give a little bit of context to the idea of what we could work on together. So this is the session description. We'll adventure across unknown, multi-chain, time-shifted collaborative landscapes. And so in the remaining sessions from today, we'll use them to give prompts in the style of Dungeons and Dragons. You don't need to know anything about D&D to participate, but you can almost think about it as scenario planning for DAOs. So it will take us through various different scenarios with the goal of documenting different pattern languages for DAOs. And I'll say a little bit more about what that phrase pattern languages means. But we'll look at DAOs that are made up of different numbers of people motivated by different goals and attacked by different kinds of adversaries, as well as supported by different kinds of collaborators. So I'll say a little bit on the potential goal that will be kind of, you could imagine the backdrop for our scenario planning. There's the idea of pattern languages, which I think are really relevant to the space today. And you could say that a pattern language describes a problem and the core of a solution that can be used in many ways within a specific field of expertise. So what does this mean in practice? So the idea of pattern language was originally espoused by the architect Christopher Alexander and collaborators to basically propose a style of vernacular building. So often architecture takes a kind of grand level scheme or grand narrative approach to design, which in certain contexts is fitting. But Alexander and team kind of identified a real dissatisfaction with their contemporary architecture, and that it didn't necessarily encourage people to live well. We have the kind of brutalism, international style, and others of architecture that to Christopher Alexander and crew don't represent like a balanced way of living. So the debate is a bit longer, but it's not necessarily about a particular style of aesthetics. So even though I mentioned brutalism or different architectural styles, it's not that these aesthetics don't support well living, it's that the patterns of the buildings, it's the ways that we inhabit the buildings, its claims don't represent a kind of way, a feeling of aliveness, a quality in the book called Without a Name, the quality without a name. So an idea of kind of wellness and how we live. And the proposition is instead that to have a certain aliveness in the buildings that we inhabit, we could develop them not from top down, but kind of ground up in a vernacular language that's composed of different patterns. So here's one diagram from the book. I believe this one's from Timeless Way of Building. And it basically describes different patterns that could achieve the aim of constructing a house for one person. So it takes very small, kind of simple phrases, often kind of accompanied by poetic language, and it's their composite that builds the structure. So there's certain kind of patterns or rules, like always have a south-facing outdoors. And this is, of course, biased towards the Northern Hemisphere. There's plenty of bias that you'll find in this work, so I'm not presenting it as a universal. But south-facing outdoors, or you could say sun-facing outdoors, where you always have a window facing the sun at all times of day to allow light into the building. You also have things like potentially a garden growing wild, that feeling of aliveness next to the structure. You always have light on two sides of every room. So the idea of one window per wall to make sure that there's a feeling of kind of passage through the space. And of course, all of these are informed by particular kind of preferences, but composite, they build something interesting. And this is from the Wikipedia page. It's a quote: a pattern language can attempt to express what brings aliveness within a particular field of human endeavor through a set of interconnected patterns. And there's many parts that kind of the books around the ideas of pattern languages, which can be thought of a more living form of the idea of best practices that are probably relevant, if only superficially, even in language or more deeper to the DAO space. So often the book will digress on the ideas of autonomy. So the idea that each pattern or each facet of a structure should have its own autonomy that's connected to the overall whole, but can evolve and change and adapt to circumstances in its own manner. Basically, this idea of pattern languages was taken up by software developers. And this is I'll do actually a longer post related on this history soon, but it was actually taken up perhaps even more in software development than in architecture. So the idea of having different patterns for methodologies of working together. Initially, it was proposed in relation to the technique of pair programming. So often working closely with one person and developing a set of collaborative techniques to both kind of audit and add to each other's code. So by introducing pattern languages, they evolved into a kind of problem solution statement style format when they met software development. So the idea that you might encounter a common problem and you could have a vernacular iterative solution that is publicly presentable. And having this format, of course, from a very kind of engineering mindset, allows it to be potentially more replicable than the poetic, free-flowing kind of form of Alexander's patterns. I kind of prefer the latter, but we'll get into that. But one easy way to break it down in relation to the DAO space is that you could imagine a pattern for DAOs called the common area. So it's the idea that there's a problem you'll see in many DAOs today, that discussion on governance proposals is fragmented across platforms. One potential solution to this is to propose a canonical discussion space, one space where we feel like the medium of the platform is suited to the pace and style of the governance discussions that you would like to have. And I link here in the slides too, which I'll share with everybody, an example proposal by the Haifa Co-op to basically put all of the Cosmos blockchain ecosystems governance on one forum, and to basically say only valid discussion for governance happens here. There could be other ones like the multi-organizational pattern, and these are ones I'm coming up with. So there could be a problem where kind of new areas of interest evolve in a given DAO that can't be channeled through the core team. So often you'll see DAOs kind of coming up with like their a common trajectory is that there's a DAO with a core team, they start a multi-sig, perhaps they launch a token, the community grows, but then there's a lot of different people with a lot of different ideas about projects they would like to execute related to the overall mission. But the core team doesn't have the capacity to lead those working groups, to help the infrastructure and set up those working groups. It's basically just too many ideas passing through too small of a filter. So this is very common for DAOs. So one proposed solution, which is becoming super common today, is to propose a working group model. And here I link to the model for the ENS DAO, which proposes different working groups that focus on different topic areas like public goods funding, like meta governance in terms of the process of the overall DAO, etc. So basically a proposal that allows different interests to have their own autonomy and channel through the DAO's mission. And I call this the multi-organizational pattern. So the idea that a DAO houses multiple teams and multiple orgs roughly aligned. There could also be the community sig pattern as opposed to the multi-sig pattern. So this is a similar kind of problem to the last of there being a lot of interest, but potentially like a small group of people having control. So it could be that a DAO has to trust an exceedingly busy and distant core team to execute multi-sig proposals. This could, for example, be one of the working group teams wants to get some money for a grant proposal for one of the ideas they'd like to execute. And maybe the proposal passes, but they're left waiting on the core team to actually execute the transfer of funds, which are controlled by multi-sig. One solution to this is basically expanding the multi-sig to make it accessible by the community. And disclosure, this is related to a Zodiac tool, which is the product or kind of set of open standard tooling that I work on. So it's able to kind of take a Gnosis safe and allow a Gnosis safe multi-sig, which we saw earlier in the session, and basically expand it so that if a proposal is successful, anyone in the community can execute the proposal. It doesn't have to rely on the multi-sig signers. As we saw earlier, the kind of DAO house Malak framework is another way of solving this problem, where actually the proposals can directly execute transactions related to a safe treasury as well. So it's the idea that it's a community sig, and that rather than a multi-sig, the idea that many people can access what we traditionally conceive of as a multi-sig account while not sacrificing security. But of course, like I can propose all of these patterns, but what good is it? I often find the issue with best practices guides are that they become really a snapshot in time. They present one group's view on best practices at that state of the ecosystem, and then very quickly fossilize into documents that aren't living, that don't evolve as best practices evolve. So the idea of using a pattern language is essentially to make it vernacular, collaborative, not universal, but something that can replicate in multiple different ways and be reused and remixed by other people. Because there's a kind of false universalism posited, I think, when you counter the idea of pattern languages that, and I disagree with this slightly, that it can cover all scales, all kinds of institutions. But the kind of last paragraph on this screenshot is basically really important in my opinion, that pattern languages aren't fully living as languages because they have to be shared vision among a group of people. They have to be contributed by a wide range. And they're very specific to their culture, able to capture their hopes and dreams, containing many memories and special local ways of doing things. So I could propose as many patterns if I want, but if they aren't shared with others, then it's not a very useful language vernacular that's being developed. So one thing that my team is working on is Zodiac.wiki, a kind of pattern language for DAOs. And the difference here is that we want to do it as a wiki format. The idea that we're going to use the Wikipedia software called Mediawiki, so it will look sort of like Wikipedia, and basically being able to make an account, add their own pattern, add edits to existing patterns, or add additional detail to them, or potentially different proposed solutions. And the goal with this is to document a pattern language for DAOs and thereby create a common resource for the ecosystem. Since this idea, I've talked to a lot of people about it. We've started working on it in a small extent, but it's whether it's the DAO Research Collective, I know Cabin DAO is interested, token engineering team. since talking to people, everyone's really interested in having a kind of shared ecosystem wiki related to DAOs. So my dream for this project would be that it's kind of platform and team agnostic, that we don't have quite the Web3 tooling for it yet, but you can imagine a kind of shared distributed database with all these patterns that different teams can create different interfaces to or applications to. In lieu of that existing now, we are starting with the Mediawiki platform. So basically, an idea for this session and as a DAO is to contribute to a generic ecosystem-wide wiki with a CCO, so Creative Commons Zero license, so that anyone can remix and reuse the content so that all of you can reuse it for your own projects. And then basically documenting kind of DAO patterns we've observed. So I've created this link here, feel free to go to it. It's bit.ly/KB5-patterns, should work for everybody. And basically, the goal here is to document different patterns that we learn through our sessions, but also in our own experiments. So here we go. So right now it's just a Google Doc. Maybe I'll move it to Notion, but sometimes the pricing on Notion can be a bit strange. So basically just here, this has a few different resources on pattern languages. So it has a link to this presentation, to a Wikipedia page, to a talk, and also to a recent project by the great team that was behind the Declaration of Interdependence for Web3. And basically, this will allow you to get a little bit more of the context. And this is a document that we can all add and edit to. And basically I set up so that there's a table where you can actually do more of like the kind of problem solution statement style pattern languages. Then there's also bullet points here for if you want to do kind of more poetic language as well, which is probably where I'll continue to be adding to it. So also in relation to this, for these coming sessions, can you guys see my Notion? I'm not sure if I shared different applications.
Yes.
Yeah.
Cool. So basically, for some of the next sessions, what we'll be doing is scenario driven, so D&D driven kind of DAO sessions. So your DAO has just begun, there are 6 of you, how do you structure yourselves? 3 new contributors want to join your founding group, how do you accommodate them? So in these kind of scenario driven models that we'll face in the next sessions, we can ideally basically construct different responses to them and document them. And we can have a particular kind of KB5 DAO that's related to documenting these scenarios and patterns we face. So it's almost like a kind of meta level aim where we document as we go through and hopefully make it like a useful living document that's a shared resource among the community for like years to come. So that would be my proposal for the DAO as we basically do these patterns, document them, and then we can also use the DAO itself to decide on which patterns we want to publicize or where we want to put them online. Yeah, and I'm curious on everyone's thoughts. Hopefully that was clear. Also, let me know if you have any questions.
A lot of love happening in the chat right now, Kia. If you have any particular thoughts, comments, questions, jokes, dances, or other contributions, now is the time.
I'll jump in with a question if that's okay, Andy. Excellent. Thank you so much, Kei. It's really, really interesting and thrilled to be a part of that going forward to help you and your incredible people who put so much time into this over the last few years enable the rest of us to sort of catch up and even more people to take advantage of it. What do you see as the sort of priority areas which not just yourself, but the wider sort of people in the DAO community, maybe some of the sort of DAO Star One team members are thinking about some of the most pressing challenges in this space? Sort of where can we add the most value through our sort of diversity of thought?
Sure. So what I see is actually there's a few primary issues, and there's definitely like the tech tooling needs to advance, but I think actually the main issue right now is documentation and legibility of documentation. So I feel like through this exercise and just basically documenting the challenges that we face together and sharing them publicly would actually be a massive help to DAOs. I think that there is like a medium question of like right now we don't have the best tools for documentation. That it's a cultural problem before it is a technical problem. But by doing this, I think we start introducing the need for a different type of medium for governance, because I don't really think Twitter's working. I don't really think the forums are working. I don't really think we have like tools to basically do knowledge transfer yet. So hopefully doing more knowledge transfer work like this would be great. And just to be clear, it's like I've been trying to figure out how to make this like an ecosystem agnostic initiative. So yeah, also open, like I think we should do as a DAO to decide like where we upload it and host it and licensing and all of that. But we will also be doing like a Zodiac Wiki too, which everyone's welcome to contribute to, but I wouldn't want that to be the main output of this unless like the DAO votes it too with like an overwhelming majority or something, just to say.
I've been a huge fan of this particular initiative of kind of like collective co-creation of basically scenarios and trying to get a sense of the ones that yes cause problems, but also the ones that feel like they're moving in the right direction. So I think that would be the only other addition. One of my favorite parts of what Kei shared earlier was just this idea that like we can continue to point towards patterns that feel healthy, but there's something that like you can't ever really point to when something's going right. And so using these scenarios both to define like tricky scenarios and a lot of the edge cases, but also the scenarios that feel like they're healthy, both seem like fun places to go.
For sure. Does anyone have any more questions on that approach or idea?
Yeah.
I think we can do it through emergence in the DAO as well.
I was wondering if you have any tips for us on how to kind of do research and investigate, particularly looking at a lot of the DAOs have an incentive to promote themselves as authorities and say everything's great. And then, right, so we have this kind of dynamic of especially because there's value to their tokens, so they're promoting themselves and sort of downplaying what's not working. So yeah, do you have advice on sort of how to navigate that and surface these kind of challenges?
Yeah, I think this is also an issue of like documentation not being very good for these communities yet, and then it's really hard to surface like where things are working and not working. If you want, I linked to, in the kind of patterns doc, I linked to a few like existing proposals. So like I think the Haifa co-op proposal to like consolidate Cosmos governance into one place is a good example of like a proposal that specifically responds to a problem. I think looking at recently discussion around ENS, you can see a lot of process questions and issues that have arisen due to difficult topics or difficult mediums to deal with those topics, basically, is my opinion. So yeah, I think it's hard to get into the weeds. I think you can also, there really should be like a kind of DAO learnings. There's a lot of new like DAO podcast model where people, this is also actually why I often don't go on podcasts, because I think you're often expected to like represent and promote your project. And there isn't like a developed enough language to talk about like what went wrong in your journey. So I would love to see like that surface more, but it's hard. I don't have like one place in mind where you can go to find that.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Isaac and Kei, our love for you knows no bounds. Thank you so much for everything that you have given to us in this session today. Thank you for your continued care and attention. We are privileged beyond words to have both of you with us, leading us through all of these patterns on the cutting edge and hopefully making it more soft and squishy and human for all of the people to come next. It's a wonderful foundation for many weeks of fun after this. The DAO is open. I encourage any kind of chat or contributions in the Slack channel. I think that's coming up with more prompts that we can do together, submitting sneaky proposals yourself, testing this lazy consensus and querying Isaac about whether it really is a good idea. All of these kinds of things are within the realm of the possible. So please exercise your creativity. It will be wonderful to explore with you this multi-chain time-shifted landscape and come up with all kinds of poetic patterns and daring explorations into what may be the future. Thank you very much for being with us. Thank you for your time. And I will play us out as per usual. So go well, enjoy your weekend, and we'll see you around.